I want to tell you a story, but before I do, hi, welcome to Sounds of the Sidewalk. I'm Cherie, and it's my immense honor to kick off each episode. If it's your first time visiting our podcast, if you've never heard of this award-winning choir, Voices of Our City formed organically, literally on the streets of San Diego, and has grown into an internationally recognized nonprofit that supports people experiencing housing insecurity. I sometimes struggle to describe exactly what happens behind the scenes here. I mean, it's incredible. The team here is dedicated to really connecting to the brilliant people that give this choir a voice. They listen to what each member uniquely needs and wants, and they help develop a plan together, at times literally walking beside them to appointments or apartment searching. This is seriously person-centered work. It's incredible to witness. All that to say, Voices of Our City is an arts org that uses creativity as a way to build community. And community is everything when you feel like your back is against the wall. Music just happens to be the first thing that brings us together here at Voices. Which brings me to this story I want to tell you. It's about music and a particular song that found me when I was in the Air Force. There was a day when I experienced an event that upended my sense of safety, both in myself and in the world. And I began to isolate, to retreat inward. I didn't know it then, but at that time, I was in the grips of a massive depression that would lead to my own housing insecurity a year later when I separated from the military. My way of managing these waves of anxiety was to hole up in my apartment after finishing duty for the day and splash out on my bed, put a pillow over my head, shut the world out, and listen to music as I'd just try to keep breathing through these near daily panic attacks. My collection of music came from the Base Library CD collection, way before streaming services were a thing. Totally dates me, I know. But this one particularly rough day, I was completely exhausted from holding myself together. Mind you, I was an air traffic controller, story for another day, but I was so depleted, I couldn't even bring myself to cry. I just climbed into bed and let this unnameable sadness sweep over me. The music switched out, and on came a CD, a fresh pick from the Base Library, one I'd yet to listen to. And this song begins with a chirping of crickets. Then the throaty hum of a woman who's seriously lived some life. I could hear myself in her voice. I could hear my grief. And as her voice was joined by a chorus of women, I realized this was in French. And I don't speak French, but I understood this song. I didn't have the language to describe to myself, let alone anyone else, what was happening to me inside. But this song, it spoke something through me of my own longing for safety and security, of something I didn't think I could ever have or deserved. I was swept up, like I was being held in the arms of someone I didn't have to explain myself to. Man, this song, the melody, the harmonies, they were like this dreamy dissonance that played a trick on me, and this internal hurt holding my body captive began to move, to have a voice, and I finally wept. Like, really wept. But in the kind of way that leaves you feeling lighter, you know? The song ends with crickets. And that day, I felt like I was laying in a grassy field on a warm summer evening. I could feel the cool, soft ground holding me, reminding me of something I knew as a girl, that the world is still full of so much beauty. This song, sung in a language I didn't speak, wasn't an answer to my pain, but it was an expression of it. And the power with which she sang it made me feel this paradoxical power, the power to roll out of bed and keep going. It'd be many years later when I heard that song again, long after I'd left the military. I was driving down the freeway in San Diego, and I heard the first few notes of a song I didn't know, but I recognized. It was the song Summertime, but this time it was sung in English. I can hear it in my head right now. I can feel the comfort and the determination that song gifted me. Only it's grown, matured, I guess. The longing in that song is still here with me, but so are the crickets. On that note, you're about to listen to Lorna, an alto and member since 2019, and the sound of music's power.
You're listening to
Sounds of the Sidewalk.
Hello, welcome to Season 2, Episode 2. We have our lovely guest Lorna here and my co-host
Naileni.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lorna.
Hi, Lorna. Well, it's an honor to have you here and a pleasure. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
First of all, thank you all so much for inviting me. I was born in California in the Bay Area.
Bay Area.
Okay.
Rap. But my father was in the Marine Corps, so we got orders to the Philippines, which both my mother and father are immigrants from the Philippines. And so from, I'd say approximately, 1.5 to 3.5 years old, I lived in the Philippines. So, I didn't learn English initially. I learned Tagalog, which is a national language for the Philippines. And again, fast forward, my father being an active duty Marine got orders back to Southern California. And when I started kindergarten, I didn't speak English. I didn't look like the other children. And I got the bleep beat out of me all the time. And right here in Oceanside, California.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. But I say that because you never know somebody's background, right? You just never know. And I'm very proud to be born in America, being the daughter of 2 immigrants, and then serving my country also like my daddy did. I served for 30 years in the Air Force. And I have 2 sisters, 2 brothers. Music has always been a central part of our lives. And real quick story to talk about my mother, which unfortunately she just passed in April of this year. We didn't have a lot of money, but she loved music. She never had music lessons because, again, both of them were from poor backgrounds. But she met a spouse of another young Marine, and the young wife did not have a lot of money, but she had this old jacked up piano. I mean, jacked up, like it was out of tune and everything. But my mother thought, it'd be cool to get a piano for us. And she kind of used the layaway plan. Remember back in the day when stores had layaway plans? So I think every month, she would pay $5 a month to this younger Marine Corps wife. And from that, all of us, all 5 of us, my siblings, we either sing, play instruments. My brother's a professional musician. And that leads me to how my brother met Rob Thorson back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, and they played college gigs together. So I had known Rob for like decades, and I didn't meet Steph Johnson until maybe probably 12 years ago. And so she asked me one day at one of Rob's gigs, and my brother was sitting in on the sax. Steph goes, and I think Steph actually did fling back her hair. Is that at Croce's? That club's not there anymore. But she goes, Lorna, do you want to be part of our choir? And without even her explaining anything, I said, yes, I want to be part of the choir. And that was in 2016, the summer of 2016. So that's just a little snippet.
Wow.
And how many members were around in that time when you joined the choir?
Oh, that's a great question. I think sometimes there would only be like maybe 8 or 10 of us. And I believe Steph can corroborate this, but the very first rehearsal, Steph Johnson and Nina Leilani Daring, they had one person, Mark. That was the first rehearsal. There was one participant.
Wow.
And look at us now.
Look at us now.
All you need is one person to be able to start that.
That's right.
Just
That's
one
right.
person. I'm a little curious about you when you were speaking about your childhood and your mother, that she would play music and play the piano. What type of music would you guys listen to, like growing up?
She didn't play. And in fact, she was tone deaf. Like her favorite song during Christmas was Silent Night, and she would sing it at the top of her lungs, but like totally off key. But that's how, she was loving the Lord. My father loved to sing, but growing up, we listened to a lot of like Aretha Franklin or Filipino music or even mariachi music, Motown. Even I remember, the Beatles, of course. But I think I gravitated more to like R&B and soul. Yeah.
So I think that is that kind of why you gravitated towards the choir as well, because the type of music is a little bit more R&B, funk, kind of soulful.
That's interesting that you bring that up. But now that I'm thinking out loud, I believe I joined the choir because of why music was such a saving grace and salvation when I was growing up, because I didn't know English. I didn't fit in. I got crap beat out of me. But where did I love being? In music, whether it's choir or, learning how to play the drums, etc. So it was familiar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was familiar.
It was familiar. And I always loved the music of Rob Thorson and Steph Johnson and her singing. But when she said why Nina and she created the choir, it was during, I think it was the summer wherein San Diego was hosting the baseball all-star games. And the way that the city treated the unsheltered and homeless was awful. And both Steph and Nina saw a lot of things happening to the marginalized folks. And, the two beautiful musicians that they used their gifts. They wanted to help people. And they just started bringing water and orange slices down, by where Petco Park is and stuff like that. And actually, Steph can tell you more, but our first venue to rehearse was at Living Water Church. And it was like this, it was this small room. It wasn't even a building per se, because one of the walls you had to, like when it was raining, you had to push it and shut bring the wall over so the water wouldn't come in. And it was loud and construction was going on. But Pastor Chris said, Steph, I have a place. I have a place for your choir.
And that was the Market and 16th, or it was another place
prior to the Market and 16th. Yeah.
I know the Market and 16th one.
Right. And that was when it was Living Water was bigger. But when Pastor Chris first started, it was not even really too much bigger than this room and maybe part of that office. So we were pretty small.
And now we're growing and growing.
I know. I know.
It's interesting. I'm hearing you speak about this, and the sense that I get is how music is connected to that sense of community, and how music can just really bring you back to like a safe space where you can just be yourself and just be comfortable.
Yes.
Because even for me as a kid, like music has always been a big part of my life. I mean, I've always liked to sing. I don't sing in public. I don't sing with the choir, but I love it. It's beautiful. As a kid, like I remember listening to a lot of like music in Spanish. I used to hate it growing up. But once I got older, I appreciated what it was. Yes. I don't know, I'm curious if you had the same reaction, because like for me, being Mexican American, I mean, I grew up a little bit here in the US, and during that time, that's when I didn't like Mexican music. But once I actually went to live in Mexico, that's when I started appreciating it, like the value that it brings.
That makes a lot of sense to me, Naileni, because I believe, because I heard, music in Spanish and Tagalog also. And I don't think maybe it was you and I not liking it, perhaps as much as pressure from other people that made it feel like less than. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't cool to like a different, dare I say, ethnic kind of music. It wasn't mainstream. It wasn't welcomed. It's still not welcomed in a lot of places. But I think you touched on how powerful, though, that force of music's going to be, even if people are trying to either, keep it on lockdown or make fun of it or whatever. It's, my goodness, it's our ancestors singing and connecting.
Connects
right?
us to our culture.
Yeah, and even when they were having the most horrendous or awful things happening to their communities or lives, for almost any group, what kept hope alive? Music. And then if you could sing in a language the main culture couldn't understand, you could do all kind of things with that on the down low. Whether it's celebrating or trying to send a specific message to either the elders or even the young folks. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And the gift of music will oftentimes, I know for me, it set me free or made me feel safe, like you said.
Yeah, there's some sort of safeness in knowing that I connect with the music, especially in Spanish. And maybe not everybody understands what I'm listening to, but I know that I have a community of people that will understand that and connect the same way that I connect to it. But especially when I listen to a lot of like Mexican American artists that grew up here, it's like a saying that they're like, you're too Mexican to be American, but you're too American to be fully Mexican, that they don't fully accept it. But I mean, nowadays I accept both. And sometimes it's difficult, especially being here in the US. Sometimes it's difficult because you will get sometimes, minor discrimination, or like you can see the things that can happen sometimes. Weird looks, especially if I'm blasting music in Spanish, going down the street in a neighborhood that maybe they don't listen to that. But
Exactly.
at the end of the day, that's part of my identity. That's part of my culture. It's part of me.
Yeah, that's your DNA, man.
Yeah.
And often when, you might feel othered or less than, I look at it as, like we're twice as nice or 3 times as cool as maybe some people who can't claim or don't know and appreciate what their background is. And that's interesting you say that, because I remember too, I was in college one day, and one of our dorm mates, she sang like classical opera music. So she invited me to one of her performances, and I'd never been to opera. I didn't understand Italian. But I tell you, when they performed, I cried right along with the story of what they were singing, because even though I didn't understand the words, that human raw emotion in the music and their singing, it just came out.
You connected to that.
Yeah, it's undeniably humanity, right?
Yeah.
Like I would listen to some Mexican music. I didn't understand. It was like Mexican love songs and they were heartbroken. I didn't know that, but I could like,
You can feel it.
mi hermano, he was like talking about, I lost my dog, my cat, and my girl. And I'm like jacked up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Music is universal. It's like a universal language.
Absolutely.
You might not understand exactly what they're singing about. You might not get the full concept, but through the performance or just the sentiment that they carry with their voice, you know exactly what they're feeling. You might not know what they're saying, but you know what they're feeling.
Yes.
And that happens a lot with this choir too. I feel
Yes.
when you see the choir, when you perform, you get to see a little part of your soul, or you get to listen to it and just feel it. Especially if you're in the room, you feel something. You take a little bit of their feeling and you connect to it.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. I mean, music is beautiful. It connects us all. I might not know what they're saying if I listen in another language, but I will connect to the song.
So, being in this creative artistic community, how has it influenced you, and how does it feel to see people lift up their voice for a just cause?
Wow. We could probably spend hours talking about that, Enrique, and I know all of us in this room, we've seen it, right? We've witnessed it. I know I am not exaggerating when I've seen in this choir that not only is it life-saving, saving lives literally, but life-affirming. Like earlier, we were just chatting about people I've known since 2016, the beginning of when Stephanie started the choir. And to see someone who's been marginalized in almost every kind of way, through no fault of their own, many times, and fighting different stereotypes. Because in our choir, right, there's many people, they've never taken drugs, they've never done, but there's that stereotype out there sometimes. But I've seen them not only find somewhere safe, like you said, to come here, have lunch, do fellowship, find a living space that they feel is like home, but to see them, like you were alluding to, all y'all were alluding to earlier, that they come out and they be their best self. Whether it's helping to write a song or learning painting techniques with you, Enrique, or when for the very first time someone said, "Oh, Steph, I've never been to a yoga session or a sound healing event," and you just see them literally, like, not trying to be, but like they're born again, and it's their authentic self. Even when they're doing storytelling with Cherie, or how you guys have helped them during like playwriting and the reads that they do with the other volunteers. Like I said, you see so many people not only come back to themselves, but to take it a step further and become their best self. And many folks within the choir have all kinds of experience. They have advanced degrees, or they've owned companies, or they run their own nonprofits right now. And again, I think that's one of the best things. That's part of our mission too, is to break the stereotypes. Yeah. Break the stereotypes and not keep people in a box, but literally like set them free through the arts, through creativity, where they feel safe, like you said.
Yeah, I feel like being safe involves a lot, especially when you're having a creative outlet, and whether that is music, art, or performing in theater, you have to feel some sense of security, safeness, for you to be able to perform your best and be able to excel and do the best that you ever can. And I feel like, thankfully, here we try to create that space for everybody, that you can be whoever you want to be, as long as you're yourself and you have fun. I think it's so important. I had a question for you specifically. I'm wondering, how do you feel that your culture's values, like your family, your spirituality, your sense of community, impact your artistic work?
That's pretty deep, but easy kind of in a way, because if, again, you're nurtured and you feel comfortable in a safe environment throughout when you're a child, because they say a lot of your core values and your values are established when you're a child. Seeing positive examples and not being held back. Like, if you want to pursue certain arts, if you want to go to college or you want to learn a trade and be the best damn plumber, the best darn plumber in the county or whatever, or, you know, you're not afraid to love who you want to love. That's one thing I cherish about the choir. Steph and Nina and you all as a leadership team and fellow choir members, more often than not, people are met right where they are, you know, in whatever state of emotion or where they're feeling without being judged. I think, you know, I mean, we're only human, things happen sometimes, but I think the overall feeling of being respected, you know, having that dignity towards everyone, because like you said, everyone's welcome, but there are certain respectful rules, if you will, like don't come try to hurt nobody, you know, respect each other's space. And I think the choir and you guys as the leadership do a really great job of trying to not only communicate that, embrace it, but actually live it. And then you see the other choir members try their best too. Because it's really a self-contained community within a community. It blows my mind. Like during lockdown, they were able to, a pandemic lockdown, we still tried to deliver food to folks. Because there was you couldn't dumpster dive. There were a lot of agencies or services that couldn't, you know, come out to people.
Right.
So we took it upon ourselves. We got to look out for our folks.
Yeah. You did a lot of Zoom too, huh?
Yes.
During that time.
Yes. That was another thing. Even the folks that, you know, if you don't have a physical address and a lot of public places like the library or Starbucks aren't open, they try to find them, you know, hotspots and laptops or thing to keep some connection to humanity, even if it was just virtual.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's been your most powerful experience, like that you said, you know what, I'm in the right place, the right time, and you know.
I don't have children, but I'm gonna take what a parent would say. You can't pick your favorite child.
Yeah.
And honest to goodness, every performance or even rehearsal, it's uniquely different, right? Because the same crew doesn't sing at every performance. The same leadership staff isn't there to, you know, corral the cats and, you know, make sure we do what we're supposed to do and stuff.
Yeah.
But it works. It's almost like magic sometimes. So I'm going to answer like even if it was just a performance for 10 people in the audience or millions, because you were on America's Got Talent, it was equally magical. And I think equally important.
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of, because we see it from a different perspective, maybe as member services, and what do you capture from a choir member's perspective? Like, how does it motivate or influence others, like to be in these performances, like after a show? Like what are the kind of things that you see when you hear them say, like, oh man, that's dope that they feel that way? Like, what are some highlights maybe that you've seen or heard?
I think ultimately, I'll use the phrase representation matters.
Yeah.
Like if you can see it, you can be it. So to take a community where it's the majority have been unsheltered at one point or another. I myself have not. But when you feel like you're a rock star because you're on some stage and, you know, cameras are on you, the choir members are being interviewed, they're sharing their, no kidding, life stories and how they overcame and not just survived, but I know it's cliche, but thrived. And the choir helps them discover talents they didn't even know they had.
Right.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That is beyond. That's almost miraculous.
Yeah.
And then I see other agencies, which I will not name, that are almost so stuck into the business of helping that they're not helping.
Right.
It's almost I'll just leave it at that. It's more for the benefit of that corporation or organization, vice the human.
Right.
You know, like in school, I talked about like I don't want to hear about the faces and spaces of homelessness. I like to hear the stories of Dee Dee, Phyllis, Dr. P, those human, no kidding, honest to goodness stories. Not numbers, not statistics, not why we can't do something, not why we can't have affordable housing.
Right.
No, the choir has like said, how you like me now? You know, look what we've done.
Yeah.
In the spirit of love,
Right.
for the most part, you know. And to put some accountability and responsibility on the individual too. Because you guys, you know, like we say, like when I was with my students or military members, I'm going to help you help yourself.
Right.
Right? And that's, I think, the dignity part that the choir helps to help develop and come back to. Because they always had dignity. As soon as you were born, you're a human being. You have dignity. But don't let the world take it away from you.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the music is what really helps empower people to gain that power back of, hey, this is who I am. I'm capable of creating music. I'm capable of being in a community. Like I'm capable of so many things that unfortunately the world sometimes knocks people down and it's too harsh on people. But I feel like as soon as a band starts playing, as soon as you hear the first note, the first drum, it's like the world just kind of stops a little bit and you're just concentrated in making music and being part of the community, doing your part, making sure that the song comes out perfectly. And that's what I love because everybody's here for the same reason. Everybody's here for music. For music, a sense of community, respect and love, which I love.
Yeah. Like for me, it's there's a power that comes in being creative, and that power, like it lifts you up. You know, whether it's like me, my art forms are, you know, vary. It could be I could be painting, I could be writing lyrics to a rap song. I've been doing hip hop since like 1989. So, but in every creative piece, there's a power and a piece. You go into that creation, you know, even when you're painting, like those are your brush strokes and it's unique and different from anybody else's painting because it's your, you know, your movement of your hand that's going into that. Your heart and your soul is going into that painting. Whether you realize it or not, some people will tell me in the class, well, I don't know how to paint. And you know, but when you start getting into it and you just lose yourself in that artistic moment, that there's a power that comes from that. And I see that power like manifests itself in choir members when they're singing, when they're painting, when they're creating a song, when they're doing theater. The other day I was watching Dee Dee, man. She had her whole thing memorized. And I just watched her perform in theater. I'm like, dude, that's so dope. You know, I seen her and other choir members, Natasha and a couple other choir members, and they were doing their theater piece. And I was like, this is so cool. Like something that we started here, just trying to be creative. That's so powerful to see that, you know, for somebody to take the time to memorize like your whole script. And she was just like, she had the whole thing memorized. She was doing her thing. And I was just like, that's dope. You know, and I think that's what you were alluding to earlier too, that how that manifests and within the choir and people become better at themselves. And because we're not really a housing organization, it's creative arts, you know, whether it's painting, whether it's singing, whether it's theater, you know. I think that's what's empowering our folks to get better and better within themselves. And we try to to also instill like professionalism, you know, because we're out there representing, you know, voices that have been silenced, you know, through the system or whatever, you know, all these systems that are created like to keep us down, you know, we're lifting up those voices. Like you're silencing them, but we're going to come out and we're going to represent, you know.
Right.
And I think that's so powerful to be out there and doing that, and, you know, and helping people come out of, you know, where they're at to get to a better place. I mean, I had to go through so much to get here, you know. And one of the things that me and Nalini work with choir members a lot is like, we can only do so much, but it's up to you. Like you have to make the decision of where you want to be, right? I can't make that decision for you. Like if you want to learn a note and you want to go and perform with the choir and you want to, you know, elevate the voices of others, then this isn't decisions that you have to personally make. Like, you know what, I'm gonna learn these notes, I'm gonna learn this song, I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna practice, and all that has that power, you know. It's all connected to that creative state, you know, the creativity within us. So I just trip out. Like they told, hey, I want to start a podcast, boss. Let's do it, you know. And now we're right here, we're doing a podcast, you know, and it's getting out there, and people are hearing people's stories, and that's also changing the perception of those stereotypes.
Exactly.
And what I've learned in doing these interviews is like there's so much dynamic in each person. Like everybody's story is different, so you can't generalize and say, oh, you know, they're all the same. And, you know, no, not everybody's the same. All of us are different and unique, and we all have our story, and that's what we want to like bring out. And the reason we had you here is like, it's a different perspective. Like you joined this cause, you're like, and we see you here and you're participating and you're helping and you're, you know, you give wise wisdom to other choir members, you know, you support them. And so we see all that, you know, how you engage in this community. And that is also very powerful.
Yeah, I feel like you're a very impactful person in this choir, in this community. You are full of wisdom and beautiful words that I feel that you are just such an uplifting person, honestly, that every time you come in here, you light up the room, like just with your smile. Like we love having you here because you represent exactly what we want others to receive from this choir, you know, just that love, light, happiness, and the joy of being in the choir, singing, representing. Like it's beautiful. It's really beautiful to see you here.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. But back to what you're saying, Enrique, that's what I meant by at the top of the hour. It's not only life-saving, but it's life-affirming. Mm-hmm. And that creative force, that's the life force. Like Esperanza Spalding, she wears these jumpsuits. It says life force. And everybody has that. And another dynamic, which is so valuable, is, for example, at rehearsals, right? Enrique, like there might be someone who's never done a solo, but the crowd, the band, the staff, they believe in that person. And stuff, it's okay. Just do it again. And the people were literally clapping for not only the person's courage to go up there, but they're almost instantaneously improving because they try and work so hard, like you said, you know, in terms of, and that's the dignity part of it. Nobody really, honestly, just wants a free handout. If they do, they're working through some other issues. But
right.
When you see that person's pride, right, in their painting or a new song that we get to sing, or even when you guys were supporting some of the choir members going to culinary school,
right?
Like everything can be a piece of art, be it food or the ladies who do the quilts for when, you know, they celebrate, right? It is celebratory. But I also love that within the peer experiences, you got to keep it real though. Like you said, you have to work on stuff.
Right.
Nobody cares if you were homeless for 15 years, but if you're not working at it and applying the tools and skills that the community, the choir, staff, volunteers are generously giving, then shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you. You're so fortunate to be here. And I see how hard folks are working to not only have, pride in the choir and the community, but that self-pride. Because many didn't get the, like you said, Nailani, the encouragement or the love or the, the push or even the tough love sometimes, right?
Sometimes.
Enrique and I have talked about tough love, and I'm, Marine Corps brat in the military. I believe in tough love, and stuff helps me kind of, pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's the power of the community again. All these different, different skills that you bring, Jillian, the different perspective you have. And it's, and you asked me, Nailani, what one thing do you really want to make sure we, I guess, touch on? The diversity of the group, be it the diversity of the staff, the crew, be it sound, the band members, even the audience.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I dare say, this is the most diverse group I've ever been a part of, proud to be a part of. And I'm talking about the diversity in where you were born, what passport you have or had, how many houses or no houses you had, who you love, who you didn't love, who you were born, and now who you are honestly, your true self. Despite what maybe the universe started you as, but now you're comfortable and respected as how you want to be called. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even just talking pronouns. I'm just talking about how you, as a human being, want to be seen as.
Right.
There's no greater love than that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can be you.
Yeah.
You can be you.
That's so beautiful that you say that, because ever since I started working here since 2022, one of the first things I noticed here is that the first moment I walked in, I felt received with so much love, even though nobody knew me. No one knew me. I was so nervous coming in here my first day. I didn't know how I was going to be received. Everybody was so nice, and I feel that just being in the space, you will always find at least one person who you can connect to, because it's so diverse. Mm-hmm. That there will always be at least one person who you can connect with, because it's made up of so many different people, like ethnicities, backgrounds, where they're at in life at that moment, like experiences. There's things about people that you would never even imagine. Even today, I feel like I'm learning more about you, which thank you. Because I always appreciate learning more. You don't really know you never finish getting to know someone, right? But with sit downs like these, it really allows you to get to know more of that person, who they are and what they stand for, which is so beautiful.
Uh-huh. And how in your culture, how do you guys celebrate art, music? Like, what are the similarities that you see in this diverse group, like with other, ethnicities or group? Like,
I think even when Steph first started, she said, and she's got her Mexican heritage too, but Filipinos, we love music, karaoke, food. And so some of those stereotypes are true, but it's the fellowship, and I think many cultures are the same, especially the folks that hardly have anything. They're probably the most generous.
Yeah.
And even some of my fellow choir members who essentially have nothing will give you everything they have without hesitation.
yeah.
Right? It's like, because my parents came from a poor background, but even it's like, to your point, Nailani, nobody's really a stranger. Okay, you haven't eaten? Okay, that's okay. Come. Just like Steph says, all are welcome.
Yeah.
All are welcome. And I think the part that's great about it too is the caveat that, but you have to hold up your end of the deal too.
Yeah.
You've got to show respect to others. You've got to practice your lines or your songbook, or go to SoundCloud and people are putting in a lot. Well, you got to put in a lot too. And then collectively, it's even greater than we could ever imagine if you did it just by
That was
yourself.
our roof train that just passed by.
Wow. And I guess that's a great metaphor for it doesn't matter how expensive the building is or how expensive the equipment is. Even if you have out-of-tune piano, it's just people coming together that believe in each other. Man, there are no limits. Because look at what the choir continues to do.
Yeah.
And what
Keeps
they will
going.
continue to do, because I feel like the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, we can't even imagine some of the things that are going to happen.
Like, what did you ever imagine that they would be building a whole theater show? When I first came in, I was like, there's a choir, and then there's theater, and then there's studio time. And then you also mean that you can also learn how to write music. There's so many opportunities.
Writing.
And writing, art, it really is open and catered to anyone who has an interest in arts and wants to learn. They can come on down and learn.
Well, I confess, when I first joined, and Nina and Steph and Rob, even we would talk, I did believe in that there were no limits. Because, I mean, Steph was already planning a community. We were going to go tour internationally and stuff. So I believe in Steph Johnson. So, and I believe in the people here that there are no limits. There are none, really.
Yeah.
And we continue to prove that
Yeah. For sure.
day in and day out.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for us?
Actually, I do have one question. And I know a little bit from some of our conversations, but for all three of you, if we have time, what drew you to Voices?
For me, when I was incarcerated, I did I had a sentence of 26 to life. I did 22 years. Somewhere in like 2016, 17, I seen the documentary on Voices, right? And I was born in Tijuana, grew up in South San Diego. So when I seen the documentary, and at that time, I was involved in a lot of community work in prison, because we were a community in there as well. And we started changing the culture by programs and facilitating a bunch of groups to inform us and educate us to make changes that we needed to make in order to regain our freedom. And I seen the documentary. I said, man, you know what? That's dope. They're doing such good work, dope work. And 2 years later, I was found suitable. And I was working in LA. I went through Homeboy Industries, and they did so much for me. It was an environment kind of like the same type of environment we build here. They had a lot of opportunities. I took a lot of their opportunities, and I grew. And 2 years later, my parole officer said, "Hey, Rivera, I got good news for you." I said, "What's up?" She's like, "You're free." And I was like, I was blown away. But my first thought was like, dude, I can move back to San Diego, because I was in LA at the time. So I started looking for jobs, and I seen on Indeed that Voices was on there. I said, man, I wonder if that's the place I seen the documentary on. So I did some research, and it was the same. It was the same, organization. So I applied. I did an interview. They offered me a job, and now I'm here. I didn't know at the time when I watched the documentary that I was going to end up working here. But everything that I love to do in my creative side, I'm in the place where I'm supposed to be. And so that's kind of how I got here. And I believe in what we're doing here. They're my passions too. I do studio sessions, with choir members want to come record a poem, a rap, a song, whatever, I love doing that. So, yeah, I'm here in the place where I'm supposed to be. That's how I got here.
Well, the way I got here, I actually had stopped working in like the nonprofit world. I had maybe like 6, 7 months I had left it. And I actually didn't think I was going to come back to doing this. And at the time I was just frustrated, and I thought about, what if I go back to working at the same thing? Like, let me look for something that has to do with the nonprofit. Cause I used to do, outreach, and I would go into prisons to help people as well for paperwork. And I missed it. I was like, I miss that feeling of getting to meet people and being able to support them in any shape or form. Because for me, it was a nice feeling. Not only was I doing something that I liked, I enjoyed knowing that in some shape, form, I can have some impact. So I started looking for jobs again, and I found here Voices. When I first came, for some reason, I knew, I was like, I'm gonna stay here. I was like, I'm gonna get this job. I ended up getting it in my first day. I remember a very specific moment, because my first day wasn't a regular first day. I came in for World Homeless Day performance that we had in Cathedral, in St. Paul's Cathedral, and you guys were rehearsing before the gig that we had that day, and I remember sitting in the middle of the church and just listening to you guys. I literally felt like a beam on top of me, kind of saying like, okay, you're in the right place. Don't remember what exact song you guys were singing, but I just remember that feeling of even feeling like warm, like I could finally breathe, like, I think I'm at the right place. Like, I feel like good things are gonna come. And look, it's almost 2 years later. I'm still here, and I will still be here. I love it because it's so beautiful. I really do think that with that experience, I felt that beautiful sense of community that everybody had, how everybody just got together to sing and make some beautiful music together. No matter where you came from, what your life experiences were, it didn't matter. All that mattered in that moment was singing and doing it well. That's what I was like, okay, I can get with this program. I love it.
An awesome addition to the team.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
So I really want to thank you for coming here and doing this interview, and for opening up and letting our listeners get to know a little bit about you and your love and your dedication to this choir, and, you know, and just for opening up to us, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I feel like we learned a little bit more about you that I did not know. I appreciate you that much more now that I listened.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Naileni. And I just always honored, and it is a privilege, and it's so fun to be part of the choir. It truly is a blessing.
Yeah.
So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So we've come to the end of another beautiful episode. Thank you for listening to Sounds of the Sidewalk. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share with family and friends. We thank you for all the support. Until next time.